This complete gardening course is divided into multiple parts with multiple sections within each part, starting from basic information to expert gardening hacks and tricks. You can skip to any section by clicking on the timestamps given in the description below. I guarantee that you will become an expert gardener if you watch this entire course at least once till the end. Please follow this playlist titled Complete Gardening Course and watch all parts like Part 1, Part 2, Part 3 and so on. Let's begin.
Let's start with a brief introduction and basic concepts before we list out the fertilizers. Please do not skip this information. Well, we all know that the major nutrients or macronutrients found in fertilizers are nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, that is NPK, and each fertilizer has a ratio of these nutrients mentioned on the labels. This NPK ratio is very important to decide what you want to achieve from your plants. Nitrogen is required for growth of foliage, that is leaves of the plant. Phosphorus is required for strong root growth and flowering and fruiting. Potassium helps regulate important functional processes in a plant and makes the plant healthy. The minor trace elements or micronutrients are also important and include iron, boron, chlorine, manganese, zinc, copper, sulfur and many more. We also know that the use of chemical or synthetic fertilizers is harmful and hazardous to all living organisms on earth. On the other hand, we also know the benefits of using organic fertilizers. Having said that, now let's list them one by one with few important points on each of them and how to use them. Please watch it till the end, and by the end of the episode I bet you will be really amazed to know so many organic options for fertilizers and many non-animal substitutes for vegan gardeners. On number 1, cow dung manure. This has been the universal fertilizer since ages. Not only cow dung, you can also use horse dung, goat dung and so on. But remember, it has to be fully decomposed to be used as a fertilizer. Generally, it has a NPK ratio of 2, 1 and 1 plus or minus 0.5, and this has a decent amount of all three major nutrients. Apart from mixing it in your potting soil in about 30% proportion, generally a handful of cow dung once every month or twice a month is good enough for most flowering and fruiting plants. You can find a detailed video on cow dung tips and tricks from a link in the description below. On number 2, vermicompost. This is nothing but earthworm poop or earthworm castings. Generally, it has an NPK ratio of 2, 1 and 1 plus or minus 0.5 and can be used as a substitute for cow dung manure or a mixture of both. Apart from mixing it in your potting mix in about 30% proportion, generally a handful of vermicompost once in a month or even twice in a month is good enough for most flowering and fruiting plants. On number 3, blood meal. This fertilizer is created using powdered animal blood. Generally, this has an NPK ratio of 12, 1.5 and 0.5. This means it's high in nitrogen and low in other elements. And one more important point to remember while using blood meal is it's highly acidic and overdose can cause fertilizer burn, which usually happens with chemical fertilizers. But the advantage of using blood meal is it's highly fast acting like the chemical fertilizers and can be used to quickly heal ailing plants with nitrogen deficiency. Add half to 1 teaspoon near the roots of the plant and water the plant, and you should see the results within 2 weeks. On number 4, fish meal. As the name suggests, it's made from fish and fish bones. Generally, it has an NPK ratio of 5, 2 and 2 or maybe different depending on the company label. This too is fairly fast acting fertilizer similar to blood meal. And apart from nitrogen, it has decent amounts of phosphorus and calcium as well. On number 5, chicken or poultry manure. This generally has NPK of 4, 3 and 3 plus or minus 1 and has more nitrogen content than cow dung. This is also fast acting and hence overdose can burn your plants. Use very little dosage similar to blood meal and fish meal. The best way to use these 3 fertilizers, that's blood meal, fish meal and chicken manure, is to add a small amount to the soil before planting or to quickly heal a plant with nutrient deficiencies. On number 6, bone meal. This needs no introduction. This is made from powdered animal bones, which is available either as a fine steamed bone meal powder or coarse powder for slow release, that is for the entire growth cycle of a plant. This generally has NPK of 4, 20 and 0. This is high in phosphorus content and very important for strong roots and healthy flowering and fruiting of your plant. Adding 1 tablespoon per medium-sized container mixed into the potting soil is sufficient for the entire growth cycle. On number 7, rock phosphate. This is a vegan alternative to bone meal with high phosphorus content with NPK of about 0, 20 and 0. You can either add this while you are making your potting mix, 1 tablespoon mixed with a potting mix volume of a 12 to 15 inch container, or use 1 to 2 teaspoons once in about 3 months per plant if the plant is already in the soil or potted. On number 8, seaweed. This fast-acting fertilizer is available for free along most coastlines. Its NPK is about 2, 1 and 4. It's high in potassium. It also has plenty of micronutrients like zinc and iron. Seaweed is considered highly beneficial to the plants that need high levels of potassium. Commercially, it's available as either zyme granules or seaweed liquid extract, which also contains humic acids, fulvic acids and other essential amino acids. You can add half to 1 teaspoon per plant once in a month to nourish them with the seaweed nutrients. Liquid seaweed extract can be used to quickly revive an ailing plant of nutrient deficiencies by spraying it on the leaves, that is called foliar feeding, and also by watering the plant. The dosage is 10 ml per liter of water. Make sure you spray more on the underside of the leaves because the stomata or the openings are more in number on the underside. On number 9, humic acid and fulvic acid. These are rather growth enhancers and the final breakdown constituents of natural decay of plant and animal materials. Humic acids are an excellent natural and organic way to provide plants and soil with a highly concentrated dose of essential nutrients, vitamins and trace elements. Humic acids chelate complex compounds into simple molecules so that they are suitable for plant absorption. This reduces the fertilizer usage by about 30% and increases flowering fruiting by more than 70%. So, how to use this? The dosage is 1 teaspoon per liter of water. Mix it well and water 1 cup, that's about 250 ml of it per plant. If you're using liquid, then add 3 ml of it per liter of water and then water your plants. You should see the results within 2 weeks. On number 10, organic micronutrient granules. This type of fertilizers contain both major NPK nutrients and micronutrients like calcium, sulfur, zinc, copper, iron, boron, molybdenum, manganese, chlorine and so on. You can add about 1 teaspoon of it per plant once in a month. You can watch a detailed video on various micronutrient deficiency patterns from a link in the description below. On number 11, neem cake and neem cake powder. This is both a good organic fertilizer as well as a good soil pesticide. It's actually the leftover product after neem oil extraction. Any cake for that matter is a leftover product. You can mix about 10% of it while preparing your potting mix to avoid soil pests. You can also sprinkle it around your existing plants to get rid of soil pests. You can also make a liquid fertilizer or neem cake tea by adding 1 handful per liter of water and allowing it to brew for at least 24 hours and then water your plants directly or by further diluting this water. On number 12, mustard cake and powder. This is another natural source of NPK and increases flowering in plants. The use is similar to how we discussed for neem cake powder. On number 13, Epsom salt. This is the best source of magnesium for plants. It's chemically magnesium sulfate. Magnesium is the centralmost atom of the chlorophyll molecule. You all know chlorophyll is very essential for photosynthesis, that is plant food production. You can watch a detailed video on the uses of Epsom salt and how to use it from a link in the description below. On number 14, soybean meal. This also needs a special mention, especially for vegans who can use this as a substitute for bone meal for phosphorus supply. On number 15, other organic fertilizers that need a mention like alfalfa meal, azomite, cottonseed meal, feather meal, green sand and so on. The pesticides approved in organic farming are largely the natural ones, though a limited amount of synthetic substances are permitted. Let's list these synthetic and natural pesticides used in organic farming and learn how to use them one by one. Please watch it till the end. On number 1, boric acid and borax. This powder is commonly used to play carom and has many uses in gardening. It's mainly used to treat soil pests and insects like millipedes and also for ant control. Just sprinkle the boric acid or borax powder over the areas of infestation and do not water for at least 24 hours. It acts as a contact poison and also as a stomach poison when the pests ingest this powder. On number 2, copper sulfate. This is used both as a fertilizer as well as a fungicide. As an antifungal, it can be used in the prevention and treatment of fungal diseases like the powdery mildew, leaf rust, black spot rose disease and many other serious fungal disease. This is the most effective antifungal in organic gardening. How to use it? Mix 20 grams of copper sulfate into 1 liter of water in a spray bottle and spray it on the affected plant. You can repeat this process after 1 week. Prepare only the required solution for the day and do not store it for the next use. On number 3, Trichoderma viridae. This is a certified biofungicide and is normally present in the soil, which controls other pathogenic fungi and prevents root rot and other harmful soil fungi. So this can be used in the treatment of soil fungi, root rot, damping off in seedlings, and also to treat fungus affected seeds or to prevent fungal infestation of the seeds. So how to use it? For preventing canker and stem rot after pruning, make a solution by adding about 10 grams in 100 ml of water and apply this on the injured stem after pruning to prevent fungal disease. To prevent seed fungus, add about 10 grams powder to 1 kilogram of seeds and mix well. For plants that are wilting and you suspect a fungal disease in the soil or root rot, mix about 10 grams per liter of water and drench the plant and the soil. Repeat after a week if necessary. To mix it in your potting mix, add about 10 grams to potting mix volume of about 12-inch container and then repot your plant. This is particularly beneficial when you transplant your seedlings into a fresh potting mix. On number 4, baking soda. This is pure sodium bicarbonate, which is mainly used for cooking purpose and readily available in your kitchen. To use it as a fungicide, you can mix about 2 to 3 teaspoons of baking soda in 1 liter of water and mix it well and then spray on the affected parts. If you want to make it more effective and a universal pesticide, you can add 1 teaspoon of oil like neem oil to this solution plus some 10 drops of liquid soap and spray it on the plant. You can also use any vegetable oil, but best is neem oil, and also you can use clove oil or even eucalyptus oil. Repeat this spray every week till your problem is solved. Apart from this, there are about 10 uses of baking soda in gardening. You can watch a detailed episode on this from a link in the description below. On number 5, diatomaceous earth. This magical organic powder has many uses in gardening like ant control, slugs and snail control, preventing animal and rodents in your garden, and mainly as an organic pesticide effective against all types of pests like aphids, mites, thrips, mealybugs, caterpillars, and even soil pests and insects. The mechanism of action is it's a contact poison which kills the pests by extreme dehydration. You can watch a detailed episode on this from a link in the description below. So, how to use diatomaceous earth on plants? First of all, water your plants for the day. Then dust the plants with an applicator or just sprinkle the powder on your plants. To avoid killing beneficial pollinators like the honeybees and butterflies, do not sprinkle on flowers. On number 6, hydrogen peroxide. Though it's a chemical with formula of H2O2 which is similar to that of water but with an extra oxygen atom, this concept is the key for using hydrogen peroxide in gardening. Well, to use it as an effective pesticide and antifungal, add 1 cup, that's about 250 ml of 6% hydrogen peroxide per liter of water or 2 cups of 3% hydrogen peroxide per liter of water. Load it in a spray bottle and spray on the plants. To control fungus gnats and soil pests, you can water the plant with the same solution. Apart from this, hydrogen peroxide has many other miraculous uses like to save a dying plant, as a fertilizer, and many other beneficial uses. You can watch a detailed episode on the 10 miracles of hydrogen peroxide in gardening from a link in the description below. On number 7, vinegar. This is chemically acetic acid. It's an inexpensive product and found in most kitchens. In gardening, we use 5% white vinegar or the distilled white vinegar. For the treatment of powdery mildew or the spot fungus, add 1 cup of white vinegar to 1 liter of water and shake it well and then spray it on the affected leaves. To use it as a pesticide, add 1 cup of white vinegar to 1 liter of water and then add some 10 drops of liquid soap and spray on the affected plants. You can watch a detailed episode on the 10 gardening uses of vinegar from a link in the description. On number 8, neem oil. Neem oil is by far the best organic pesticide available worldwide. Azadirachtin and nimbin found in neem oil are the 2 major compounds responsible for its antibacterial and antifungal actions. It is in fact a broad spectrum pesticide and the safest and the most effective of all organic or natural pesticides.
Newbie gardeners tend to watch so many crappy non-scientific gardening information and advices on the internet and damage their plants. Little bit of common sense and applying some basic science is all that's necessary for successful gardening. On number 1, placing or planting identical plants together or in a row. This may sound weird, but it's true.
Though it may look nice with a tidy row of similar trees in your garden, or even if it's container gardening, you tend to place one type of similar plants together. This is a bad idea because if pests or disease strikes, you will lose the whole row. On number 2, transplanting a seedling. Many gardeners tend to hold the little ones with their tender stems. This is wrong because stems are tender and this can damage the water and food conducting tubes, that's xylem and phloem passing through the stem. Always lift the seedlings by their leaves and use a fork or a spoon to dig through the roots. On number 3, immediately repotting a newly purchased plant from a nursery. If your plant just came home from a local garden center or nursery, let it adjust to its new environment for at least a week before repotting it. This is because the plants are already in shock in their new place and they need to adapt to new factors like light, temperature and humidity conditions. On the contrary, if your plant is purchased online, you have to repot it immediately for reasons quite obvious. On number 4, overconfidence. One of the biggest mistakes sometimes experienced gardeners make is over-reliance on their own experience and knowledge. You are never perfect, and the most successful gardeners are usually those who are willing to continue learning and growing in their knowledge. On number 5, removing the root ball while repotting. Never pull out the plant by its stem to remove the root ball. Just tap the container on a hard surface gently. It'll come out easily. If it resists, run a knife around the container to loosen the root ball. On number 6, using contaminated or dirty tools. We've all been guilty of this one time or another. Digging in different parts of soil with the same tool can transfer pathogens from an afflicted plant to a healthy one. Investing in multiple sets of trowels or spades may not seem to be practical. What you can do is disinfect or clean the tool after use or just wash it with water. You can even use household baking soda or even vinegar for cleaning your tools. You can watch detailed episodes on these topics from links in description below. On number 7, placing a repotted plant in direct sunlight. This is another common mistake most of us commit. The plant is already in transplant shock after repotting. Always keep the plant in indirect light or shade for at least a week before you shift to full sunlight. On number 8, planting too close together. That is spacing. Whether it's planting seeds or saplings, planting too close to each other is not useful and will lead to stunted growth of plants due to competition for nutrients in the soil. On number 9, sowing too deeply. This is a common mistake most neophytes commit. If you sow too deep, the seed may not germinate. The general rule of thumb is the seeds should be sown twice or maximum thrice as deep as they are thick. For example, if the seeds are 5 mm thick, sow them 10 mm deep. If the seeds are too tiny, like about less than a millimeter, simply sprinkle them on the top of the soil. On number 10, removing the mother soil during repotting. You should never remove the entire mother soil in which the plant came with during purchase, unless the soil is too clayey or if it's afflicted with diseases like fungus gnats or stuff like that. Just tease the roots and place the root ball into the new container while repotting. On number 11, killing beneficial insects and pollinators like honeybees and butterflies, and also the pest-eating insects like ladybugs, beetles and many more. You can find a useful video on identifying these insects from a link in description below. On number 12, overwatering. This is the most common mistake and the biggest plant killer. Overwatering or water suffocating the roots can lead to root rot and death of the plant. The best practice is to dip your finger to about an inch into the soil to check for moisture before watering. On number 13, over-fertilizing. Overfeeding the plant with fertilizers, especially the chemical fertilizers, in an attempt to make your plant grow faster can literally kill your plant. The best fix to this problem is to use organic fertilizers like vermicompost, decomposed cow dung or horse dung and stuff like that, and stay away from chemical fertilizers. On number 14, not following hardening off process. Hardening off means you gradually expose your seedlings to the outside world, mainly the sunlight, and get them acclimatized. Once you get your first leaves on your seedlings, you can introduce them to sunlight in an incremental or step-by-step exposure. Like for example, 1 hour for the first day, 2 hours for the next 2 days, and so on. On number 15, not closely inspecting pest attacks. Pests need to be identified and eliminated carefully. Failure to control the pests, especially aphids, whiteflies, mealybugs and others, can cause heavy damage to your plants. On number 16, hesitating to prune or trim your plants. Pruning or trimming your plants is very much beneficial to the plant and promotes more branching and hence increases the yield. You can watch a detailed video on when and how to prune a plant from a link in the description below. On number 17, allowing weeds to grow. This is an act of laziness rather than a mistake. Unwanted plants or weeds will suck out the nutrients from the soil and cause deficiency issues in your main plant. On number 18, not knowing the importance of sunlight. Without sunlight, plants cannot prepare their food and survive. However, the light requirement for every plant is different, but expecting to grow vegetables and fruits without full sunlight exposure is a mistake. As a general rule for most flowering and fruiting plants, at least 6 to 8 hours a day of direct sunlight is indispensable. On number 19, planting invasive plants close to other plants. This can cause again the deficiency issues in weaker plants closer to the stronger invasive ones. As you all know, survival of the fittest. On number 20, relying on unscientific information in gardening. This is the most dangerous mistake. Newbie gardeners tend to watch so many crappy non-scientific gardening information and advices on the internet and damage their plants. Little bit of common sense and applying some basic science is all that's necessary for successful gardening.
Purchasing a plant from a nursery requires patience. Take your time and never purchase anything in urgency. Remember, if you purchase a plant in a hurry, your time, money and efforts will be wasted. Please follow these 10 useful tips while choosing your plant. And please watch all the tips till the end, else you'll end up buying sick and unhealthy plants. At number 10, decide on the type of plant you want to buy, whether indoor or outdoor plant. You should know where to place it in your home garden, whether it's shade-loving, sun-loving or semi-shady plant or indoor plant, and whether it suits your climate. This knowledge is really important for the plant to survive. At number 9, do not hesitate to ask. That is, inquire with the nursery staff and question them regarding the name of the plant, how to care for the plant, the type of plant, whether indoor or outdoor, the fertilizer requirement of the plant, and so on. Then cross-check them at reliable sources at Google search. At number 8, the first look of the plant. First look of the plant itself will reveal its overall health. Take a closer look and compare it with other similar plants for bushiness, that's branching pattern, and new shoots. If it's looking fresh and healthy, then decide on it and make further judgment by applying few more tips discussed in this video. At number 7, overall look and hygiene of the nursery or the garden store. Check whether they are maintaining the nursery well, like the overall appearance, including arrangements of the plants, cleanliness of the nursery, and so on. At number 6, soil and watering. Check whether they're using a good, well-draining soil for the plant and check whether the plant is watered adequately with the nursery staff. You can assess this by simply dipping your finger into the soil to check watering as well as the soil compactness. Your fingers should be moist and should easily enter into the soil without much effort. At number 5, check for weeds. If there are a lot of weeds around the plant, it indicates poor maintenance by the nursery staff. The weeds actually rob off the nutrients from the main plant, stunting its growth. At number 4, look at leaves, not flowers. Do not buy plants in full bloom. Instead, choose plants with healthy foliage and nice fresh growth with many flowering buds still to open. If it's fully bloomed plant, then check whether it has lots of buds in it too. At number 3, proportionate size of the pot or the grow bag is also an important factor. Check whether the plant is getting adequate space for its root development. Like if you see larger plants in smaller containers or grow bags, this can indicate poor maintenance and the plant can get root bound and can be stunted in growth. That's our next point. At number 2, inspect roots wherever possible and check for root bound plants. What is the meaning of root bound plants? This happens when the plant outgrows and matures and there is no space for further root development, and eventually the roots grow to the shape of the pot and growth of the plant stops and the plant may even die. But most of the times you cannot remove the plant and directly check this. But one tip to grossly check this is check whether the roots of the plant are coming out of the drainage holes and entering the ground. At number 3, look for pest attacks. Look at the plant very carefully, especially underneath the leaves, for insects and pests. Plus, also check for damaged or curled leaves. You better reject such plants even if they offer free of cost or as a gift, because such plants may harm and contaminate your other garden plants. Many gardeners have their own preferences regarding the choice of containers for their plants, whether clay or plastic or cement pots. If you're confused on how to choose the right container for your home gardening or terrace gardening, you're not alone. Containers are made of many materials including clay, cement, ceramic, brass or fiberglass, stone pots, wooden pots, cocoa coir pots and whatnot. Just think of these factors one by one and this will help you in making a decision. cost, durability, and pros and cons of each option, and this we'll discuss in detail. Let's go into the pros and cons of each option. Let's start with plastic pots. Plastic pots are generally a cheaper option, and they further come in 3 or more options or colors. Choosing a color is also important. You remember one common concept in 7th standard physics. Black bodies are good absorbers of heat. They come in terracotta color, light color, and black color, what most nursery guys use. So black is not my preferred option because it absorbs more heat. If you want, you can use these for plants that prefer indirect light or shade, no issues. The advantages of these are they are cheaper, easily available even in supermarkets, lightweight, durable, and do not break easily, easy to clean, easy to make multiple drainage holes, come in different sizes and shapes, and even decorative shapes. Now the disadvantages. The first one is they get heated up soon when kept in direct sunlight and can kill the beneficial microorganisms in the soil and can burn the roots. If you're keeping in indirect light or filtered light, no issues. One most important problem with plastic is environmental and health hazard, particularly if you're using from an unreliable company. Make sure you use the least toxic ones like HDPE2, LDPE4, PP5, and so on. Try to avoid PVC3 and PS6 and polycarbonate 7, especially for food gardens. Currently, majority of plant pots are made from polypropylene, that is PP5. Currently one of the safer plastics. However, it's better to check than to assume things. Cement and ceramic pots. These have similar pros and cons. The advantages of these pots are they are visually more appealing and come in different sizes and shapes because they can be molded into any shape and size, and also they do not break so easily like the clay pots, but still they are breakable unlike plastic pots. Ceramic pots are costly but look very attractive. The disadvantages are they do not provide lateral aeration unlike clay pots because they do not have porosity in the walls, and hence they can get heated up and produce bad results if kept in hot sunlight. One more issue with concrete or cement pots most of us are unaware is that they can affect soil pH because concrete is rich in lime and can slowly release into the soil and can make soil more alkaline, which can be toxic for most acid-loving plants. Before moving on to the clay pots, we'll quickly look into other options like wooden pots, stone pots, styrofoam containers, and others. Styrofoam boxes, what some people call thermocol boxes, are good when they are new and insulate plants well by reflecting heat, especially in summer. They are cheap and sometimes you get them free of cost. They are lightweight and durable. The most important and dangerous drawback of these is the polystyrene material hazard, because as it gets older, it can degrade and release toxic carcinogenic substances. Stone containers, they are very attractive but are costly, heavy and not easily available and very heavy to lift or shift. Wooden containers are good, but if the timber used to make them is from reliable source or company. Bamboo planters are good and look attractive for small ornamental plants. Wooden containers also provide good insulation to plants from heat. The major drawback is it attracts insects and pests like termites. And also, if timber is of bad quality, it can start rotting. Metallic pots, they heat up very fast and bad for sun-loving plants. Some containers can get rusted and also drilling drainage holes can be tough. Clay pots, they have the best advantages from plant health perspective, like they're porous and provide excellent drainage from all sides and also lateral aeration. Can be kept in direct sunlight without any issues or damage to the plant roots. The only disadvantage of these pots is they are very fragile and can easily break. Grow bags, a relatively new concept in home gardening. They are available in various sizes and are very cheap. They are lightweight and ideal for terrace gardening, and most reliable ones are UV resistant and safe. The problem is they do not look much attractive.
Whether purchased online or offline from a local nursery, people often have a misconception that immediately repotting a newly purchased plant into a larger container and a nutrient-rich potting soil will make your plant grow like crazy. But this is not always true. Now let's discuss some very important points and concepts you must keep in mind if you want to keep your newly purchased plant healthy and avoid the so-called repotting or the transplant shock. To answer these questions, let us ask two questions. When do I repot a newly purchased plant offline, that is from a local nursery or a garden store? Then when do I repot a plant purchased online? Now let's quickly look into the conceptual answers to these queries. If your plant just came home from a local garden store or nursery, do not repot immediately. Let it adjust to its new environment for a few days or at least a week before repotting it. This is because the plants are already in shock at their new residence until they get used to the new factors like light, temperature, humidity and stuff like that. Then in the second scenario, that is when you purchase a plant online, repotting immediately is the best solution in most cases because it is very much likely that the plants would have traveled hundreds of thousands of miles and many days without any water or moisture before reaching its final destination. The plant will be going through a recovery period and an acclimation period during these days of transport in whatever medium the seller packs them in. So why let the plant reacclimate twice in this situation? Now the third topic, the 10 golden rules of repotting. Let's quickly list them one by one. On number 1, water the plant day before you plan to repot. Then number 2, perform repotting in the evening hours to prevent the shock to the plant during sunlight, that is the daytime, which is the active period for photosynthesis. Let it get overnight period of rest and recovery. Then on number 3, to remove the root ball, gently tap the rim of the pot to a hard surface like a table or a counter. This is to loosen the root ball instead of pulling it with force which can damage the roots or the stem. If the root ball resists to come out, run a knife between the pot and the root ball to loosen the root ball. Then on number 4, inspect the root ball for things like any root worms or maggots, root disease, and whether they are root bound to decide whether you want to repot in a larger container or perform root pruning. On number 5, choosing the right container. For fruit and vegetable plants, especially if you're growing on terrace, choose fabric grow bags as your first preference. This is because these are not only light but also follow the principles of air pruning and can grow into healthy trees using this principle. If you want to know what is air pruning, you can watch my detailed episode on that topic from a card linked at top right corner of the screen. Then it is also very important to choose a pot that is of appropriate size for the plant. Like you should never repot a 6-inch pot plant into a 14-inch or a very large pot. Go step by step. Choose 1 or 2 steps higher, like 6-inch pot you can repot in a 8-inch or a 10-inch container and so on. Then on number 6, drainage holes. This is probably the most important factor you should consider. If you do not make enough drainage holes at the bottom of the pot, your plant will stand in water and this will lead to root rot and death of the plant. On number 7, choosing the right soil. As a general rule, use a well-draining, nutrient-rich soil with at least 30% compost like vermicompost or decomposed cow dung. To make it well-draining, you might have to add coco peat or peat moss to garden soil in proper proportions. Make sure you also add stuff like bone meal or soybean meal for inducing flowering and fruiting. You can watch my detailed episode on the best potting mix recipe from a link in description. Then on number 8, partially fill the container with potting mix and then place the root ball exactly in the center of the pot. Then add additional soil to cover the empty space. Make sure the surface of the root ball is below the rim so that you can cover it adequately with potting soil or compost, and also there is good space for properly watering your plant. Then on number 9, gently tap the pot on a hard surface to remove air pockets and also to level the soil from within. Then on number 10, finally, after repotting, water the plant thoroughly, and this also removes leftover air pockets and stuff like that. Then to counter the repotting or the transplant shock, you can follow these simple steps. That is, water the plant with Epsom salt solution weekly once for about a month. The dosage is 1 teaspoon Epsom salt per liter of water. Finally, keep the plant in indirect sunlight or under a green shade net for at least a week before shifting it to full sunlight. Before we start, let's look into what is a well-draining soil. Well-draining soil is a soil where water drains out at a medium rate, neither too quickly nor too slowly. We all know that if the soil is too wet, plant roots fail to get the oxygen they need and they tend to rot and the plant dies. Similarly, if the soil has too much air pockets and if it drains out too quickly, plant roots dry out, which again is not good for plant growth. Compacted, clayey soil is an example of a poorly draining soil, whereas sandy soil is an example of a fast draining soil. So, in order to make the perfect or near perfect well-draining soil, you need soil amendment and adding one or more of certain stuff or ingredients to your garden soil in proper proportions, neither too less nor too much. We'll demonstrate you a simple test to check whether your soil is the perfect well-draining soil at the end of this episode. Before that, let's list out the top 10 things you should add into your potting soil to achieve this goal. On number 10, peat moss. Peat moss is organic dead fibrous material which makes your soil well draining. It has an acidic pH and hence very useful for acid loving plants, but its main problem is it's a bit expensive and may not be suitable for alkaline pH loving plants. Its best use is in seed starting mix. It's usually mixed with compost and it holds moisture and nutrients for a longer time and hence helps in seed germination. Peat pellets like these are available which are really great for starting seeds. On number 9, perlite. Perlite is another natural substance and amorphous volcanic glass, and sometimes they call it as volcanic popcorn. When you look at perlite under a microscope, you should see that it's quite porous, and this property aids in making soil well draining and well aerated. Perlite forms a great stuff for making indoor potting mix and a seed starting mix. But you cannot add perlite alone to garden soil or compact soil because it easily gets crushed to powder on pressure. On number 8, pumice. This is another natural substance. The main advantage of this substance is it overcomes the problem of perlite, that is, which gets crushed into powder on pressure when mixed with garden soil. So, pumice in this case is the best option. Garden pumice or horticultural pumice is available in various grades or sizes and a very useful ingredient in succulent potting mix. On number 7, vermiculite. This is another naturally obtained substance with a neutral pH. It holds a lot of moisture and makes a well-draining soil. It will not rot or degrade or mold and is non-toxic and sterile, which makes it a good option in a seed starting mix. This is great for water-loving plants because it holds a lot of moisture. But be careful or better not use it in succulent potting mix. There are different grades of vermiculites available for gardening. You can use a lower size grade for making your seed starting mix along with other stuff like coco peat or peat moss. If you're using this alone to mix with garden soil, you should use in this proportion like 1 part to 3 parts soil. On number 6, coco peat. It's the most widely used growing medium which is obtained and processed from coconut fibers. This is available as ready to mix powder or compact bricks which can be easily reconstituted by mixing it with water, and this expands into lots and lots of volume of coco peat. It has a slightly acidic pH of around 6 which is very much favorable for most plants. Depending on the requirement or the plant you are growing, you can mix about 1 part to 2 part soil, that is 1/3, or 2 parts to 2 part soil, that is 50%, especially for making indoor potting mix or terrace gardening mix to make it a lightweight potting mix. For seed germination, you can use coco peat alone or add some 20 to 30% compost in it to support the seedlings until transplant. On number 5, compost. Yes, adding compost like decomposed cow dung or horse dung or even leaf compost and even special compost like vermicompost. This is not only indispensable for plant growth, but this also makes your soil less compact and well draining. But adding other stuff like perlite, vermiculite, coco peat or peat moss along with compost makes the soil more suitable for healthy growth of plants. On number 4, sand. Adding construction or river sand is another good option if you do not want to purchase perlite or vermiculite or things like that. Remember not to use sea sand or beach sand for your plants. The major drawback with sand is that it can make your soil drain out too quickly, especially if you're adding more than 30% to the soil. But this type of mix is very much favorable for succulents and cacti, but not to other plants. Another major problem is soil compaction over a period of time, which can make it concrete-like and difficult for the plants. So generally add no more than 10% or max 20% sand into potting mix for most plants. On number 3, brick powder. Some gardeners suggest adding brick granules or coarse red brick powder makes the soil well draining and well aerated. On number 2, gypsum powder. This is another good alternative to mixing it with compact soils, which effectively changes the structure and fertility of heavy clay soils. On number 1, shredded bark, twigs and sawdust. No doubt all these make your soil well draining, but at the same time they steal nitrogen from the soil in the process of their decomposition. So if you're adding these stuff into the potting mix or for mulching, make sure you mix a lot of supplements to supply nitrogen to your plant and prevent its deficiency. Now, finally, a simple and a rough test to check whether your soil is perfectly well draining. When you add water to your container, after thoroughly watering your plant, it should drain out from the drainage hole in about 1 to 2 minutes, neither quicker nor too late.
Let me start with 3 P's of successful gardening. That is planning your garden, potting mix preparation and planting. So today we'll discuss on the second P of gardening, that's preparing the best potting mix for your plants based on some useful scientific concepts. Please watch this video till the end. First we'll discuss the criteria for the best potting soil for your plants and then the formula or the recipe for the best all-purpose universal potting mixture for your gardening. Well, you need to understand this point. Why can't I just dig up the ground and use this soil for my plants? This is because we have 2 major limitations of this. The first one is the compaction or the hardening of the soil, mainly with clayey soil which can suffocate the roots. Then the second one is lack of nutrients in the soil, that is the major NPK elements, that's nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, and also minor trace elements. Hence the need to prepare your own potting soil. Hold on friends, some more important concepts to learn before I disclose my recipe. A few criteria you should be taking care of while preparing your potting mix, that is drainage, water retaining capacity and adding nutrients. The first one is drainage. We all know too much water can rot your plants. So a well draining soil that quickly drains out water within a particular duration of time is important for all plants. This is the most important criteria for growing succulents, and also based on this you can adjust the proportions of stuff like sand, perlite and other stuff. Then second is the water retaining capacity. This is just quite opposite of the first factor. So we have to add materials in such a way that the water should neither drain out too quickly nor it should stagnate in the container. The third one is the nutrients. Very important criteria in container gardening. We have to add certain nutrients into the potting mix so that your plant can produce flowering or fruiting at the right time and can grow in a healthy manner. Having said that, now let's start making your own potting mix with the best and easily available ingredients. I'm showing you 2 formulae. One you can use purely for terrace gardening, which is very lightweight and will not have any compaction. This can also be an ideal seed starting mix so that the seeds can push the lightweight ingredients in its germination process, and also to some extent this is sterile. And the second one is all-purpose mix for most of our plants. You can change the proportions as per your requirement, but generally this mix will be useful for any plant. So the formula is good quality garden soil, about 40%. By good quality I mean it should not have any large stones or other large size stuff within it. Then secondly, coco peat or peat moss, about 30%. If you do not have this, you can use about 10 to 20% river sand. Adding more sand may result in too fast drainage, which might be helpful for succulents and cacti. Then thirdly, 20 to 30% compost like decomposed cow dung powder or vermicompost or leaf compost or a mix of these. These first 3 ingredients should be minimum for your plants. You can further fortify this with about 5% of any of these or a combination of these. That is bone meal powder for increasing flowering and fruiting, then neem cake or any oil cake powder for its antimicrobial and antifungal effect to protect the roots. Then optionally you can also add trichoderma or pseudomonas powder and also some beneficial fungi called mycorrhizae. The second formula of potting mix is a lightweight mix suitable for rooftop gardening and also a great seed starting mix. Here what you do is you do not use garden soil, but you use only coco peat or peat moss about 50%, then compost like the decomposed cow dung powder or the vermicompost about 30%, then perlite or vermiculite about 20%. You can optionally add the same 5% ingredients like the bone meal, neem mix, mycorrhizae and other stuff as discussed earlier.
Water is really amazing. chemically H2O, made up of hydrogen and oxygen. It's literally responsible for all life on Earth. Watering your plant is a no-brainer, but how much and how often can be more tricky to tell. Luckily, we have a few gardening tips and tricks in this episode on watering for optimum plant health. Watering your plants is key to keeping them healthy, apart from a rich soil and a good amount of sunlight. Today, let's solve this frequently asked question in gardening. How much to water plants and how often to water plants? That is, what should be the frequency of watering? The answer to this question is not really easy and depends on a number of factors like the type of plant, your location or the local climatic zone, the season of the year, the type and size of the container, and so on. Now, let's list out the 12 golden rules of watering your houseplants, especially applicable to container gardening. You must also remember this very important line: overwatering is the most common plant killer than underwatering. On number 1, avoid waterlogging and stagnation. To avoid this, firstly, you need to have a well-draining potting soil mix. Your potting mix must contain at least 30 to 50% of stuff other than garden soil, like compost, peat moss, coco peat, perlite, vermiculite, sand, and stuff like that. You can check a related episode on this topic from a link in the description below. Then secondly, you must also check whether the drainage holes of your container are patent. Water should freely flow out of the holes, else it can be a disaster to your plants. On number 2, checking the topsoil for moisture. Before you water your plants, make it a habit to check the top 1 or 2 inches of the soil using the finger dip method. If it's completely dry, then you need to water your plants. You can also check this using a soil moisture meter or a simple moisture and pH testing gadget like this. But the best gadget is your finger. This is important because drying out of soil just before watering promotes growth of roots. Rule number 3. Water less often but thoroughly. This is really an important rule. Generally, for most plants, it's better to water less often but thoroughly. This is always much better than watering more frequently but with little quantity of water. The next rule, that is the rule number 4, explains this concept better. Rule number 4. Water must reach the roots. Most roots are located deeper near the bottom of the containers. Hence, superficial watering with small amounts and even though more frequently will not give you good results. Hence, thorough watering and less frequent watering is recommended so that the water reaches the deeper roots till the bottom of the container. On number 5. Water late in the evening or early in the morning. In late evenings and early mornings, the soil is cooled and hence less water evaporates than it would on hot soil during the day. And the plants can sufficiently stock themselves with water for upcoming photosynthesis, and the plants will be able to deal better with the upcoming heat of the sun. On number 6, keep the leaves dry to avoid fungus. Generally, for most plants, especially for the succulents and cacti, it's recommended to pour water on the soil and not drench the plant completely due to the risk of fungal disease. But this depends on the local climate and the type of the plant. If it's scorching hot in summer, you can mist or drench some of the plants, but not those plants which store water in their leaves and stem, that is, the succulents and cacti, due to the risk of rot. On number 7, water gradually and allow it to go down into the soil, wait and then water again till the water comes out of the drainage hole. This is thorough watering and important for deeper roots to receive water, as I already discussed in rule number 3, that is less frequent but more thorough watering. On number 8, if you are on a vacation or want to reduce the watering frequency, you can use clay-rich soil, but smartly. This holds water well, and this is the soil used by most nursery guys to water their plants less frequently. But there is always a risk of root rot from this water stagnation if you use clay soil. You can also use water retaining gel crystals like the SAP gel crystals, that is super absorbent polymers, which are now easily available and non-toxic and safe granules. This can significantly reduce watering frequency. Then rule number 9, different watering for different plants. This is really important, especially if you are a beginner. You have to know the name of the plant and also its care tips like watering requirement, sunlight requirement, and stuff like that. Do not hesitate to ask the plant identity and Google about its care tips and watering requirements. On number 10, container gardening versus ground gardening. Watering requirement and frequency is different for these two types of gardening. Remember this line: container grown plants dry out much faster and hence require greater watering vigilance. Rule number 11. Always water your plant after repotting so that the plant can settle in and stay hydrated while it establishes itself into its new home. Rule number 12. Rather, these are small tips like plants in larger pots dry out more slowly than plants in smaller pots. Then plants in bright daylight dry out more quickly than plants in low light or even indoor plants. Humid air keeps the soil moist for longer than the dry air.
How would you feel when one day on your early morning garden inspection you find part of your garden disappeared while you slept, or realize your flower buds are torn apart and very badly damaged? I'm sure after seeing this, your first instinct is likely to spray some powerful chemical pesticide all over your plants to kill those culprits without even investigating further. This is not a right decision. Please spend a little time to find out what's eating your plants and then take necessary action to eliminate that particular pest or insect. Well, now we'll look into identifying some common pests by scanning their leaf signatures, that is, the leaf damage pattern they leave after feeding on your plants. Let's begin. At number 1, zigzag leaf mining pattern. Obviously, these are called leaf miners. Leaf miners are actually very tiny larvae of a variety of insects like flies, moths, and beetles. Leaf miners do not actually cause a significant injury to the infested plant, but rather give an unattractive look to the plant. This mining pattern of zigzag lines on the leaves are produced as these tiny larvae bury and eat along the infested leaves. If you want to control these, neem oil spray is the best organic solution. 5 to 10 ml neem oil per liter of water along with few drops of liquid soap. Spray once or twice weekly. At number 2, chewed leaves or slime trails. If you see irregular shaped holes in the leaf but not along the edges, and if you see slime trails or lines, then most likely the culprits are the slugs and snails. So, what's the solution? There are a lot of remedies for slugs and snails like hand pick and eliminate method, electric copper wire fence, beer trap, etc. Beer trap is the most effective one. Pour some beer in a saucer and leave it overnight. This attracts and kills these creatures. At number 3, chewed leaves along the edges. This type of leaf signature is left mostly by leaf-cutting bees. So what's the solution? Generally, unless it's too extensive a damage, you need not take any step to kill or drive away these bees because they are beneficial insects and required for pollination in your garden. At number 4, chewed leaves with central holes in between veins, like skeletonized leaves. This signature indicates caterpillars, especially if the holes are larger. This is also caused by other insects like beetles, earwigs, and sawflies. So, what's the treatment? For caterpillars, handpick and eliminate them, including their eggs from the leaves. After doing this, spray neem oil plus soap solution weekly twice. 10 ml neem oil plus 10 drops of liquid soap or a shampoo and spray it thoroughly, including the underside of the leaves. At number 5, discolored leaves plus sucking damage. This is commonly caused by thrips and spider mites. Common thrips are the Cuban laurel thrips. As you can see here, the leaf is discolored and then folded onto itself to form a pouch to cover these creatures and its eggs. If left untreated, these thrips will multiply drastically and can cause a considerable damage to your plant. So, what's the solution? Firstly, try and remove as many leaves or trim those branches and burn them. Then you can spray neem oil plus liquid soap added with little clove oil or eucalyptus oil weekly twice. If this still persists, then go for chemical sprays like those containing imidacloprid as the last resort. At number 6, leaf galls or leaf bumps. This is a strange and rare pattern which presents as tumor-like boils on the leaf surface. This is considered to be due to irritation or stimulation of plant cells due to feeding or egg laying by insects such as aphids, wasps, and mites. At number 7, sucking damage and deformed leaves and leaf curls. Common sucking pests are aphids, whiteflies, and mealybugs. The mealybugs are very common and are found sucking the new growth and tips. In fact, mealybugs as well as aphids have a symbiotic relationship with ants, which protect these pests from predators and also carry them to the plants. The ants in turn get the honeydew sugars excreted out of their anus as their gift. So, what's the solution? Neem oil plus liquid soap is again the first choice, sprayed weekly twice. Another disease related to this is the leaf curl virus seen in some plants like the peppers and tomatoes. This is actually caused by a leaf curl virus. To treat this, firstly isolate the plant. Then use this recipe to spray and completely cure this disease. Take 1 liter of sour buttermilk. You can also take 500 ml if you have fewer plants. Then add 1 teaspoon or about 5 grams of asafoetida powder to it and mix it well. Let it stay for 1 or 2 hours. Sieve this solution using a fine cloth to avoid spray bottle clogging. Spray this thoroughly over the affected plant, including the underside of the leaves. Repeat this every 3 days for 3 to 4 times. Leaf curl virus, which is common in pepper and tomato plants, will be completely cured by this treatment most of the times.
When you see leaves of your plants turning yellow or burning or browning at its tips or edges, it's time to investigate and find out the possible cause and solution to it. You must be aware of these problems and solutions to keep your plants stress-free and healthy. The first broad diagnosis that should come to your mind is your plant is in stress. And then you further start investigating and finding out the exact reason for this problem. Please watch this episode till the end and we'll start listing the top 10 reasons for this problem in descending order. On number 10, natural aging of the plant. This is one obvious reason for yellow leaves. If you see older leaves, especially at the bottom of the plant, turning yellow, just ignore it. This is not a reason to worry. On number 9, pest attacks. Sucking pests like aphids, mealybugs, whiteflies, thrips and mites can damage the leaves and can cause yellowing of leaves. You know, prevention is better than cure. These can be easily prevented or even treated organically using neem oil spray regularly for treatment as well as prevention. Spray neem oil once every 15 days as a preventive measure and weekly once or even twice for treatment of these pests. You can watch my detailed episode on neem oil from a link in the description below. On number 8, root-bound plants. Root-bound plant means that the roots of the plant have completely taken up the space within the pot, often circling and creating a dense web of roots. This can stress the plant and deprive it of nutrients, air and water, and this can result in leaf yellowing and even stunted growth of the plant. Just repot the plant in a larger container or carefully perform root pruning if you wish to use the same container. On number 7, transplant shock. This is another reason for leaf yellowing and even leaf drop. This is the period of stress to the plant when you just repot a plant. You can solve this to a certain extent by repotting your plant carefully, and after repotting for the next 1 week, keep the plant in shade away from direct sunlight. Water the plant once thoroughly with Epsom salt solution to counter this transplant shock. Like 5 to 10 grams of Epsom salt per liter of water is the recommended dosage. You can watch my detailed episode on the 10 golden rules of repotting a plant from a link in description below. Well, on number 6, fertilizer overuse. If you observe a strange pattern to yellowing of leaves, like if the veins of the leaves are green and the tissue is getting yellow, or the edges or tips are yellow or looking like burnt, along with bud drop off or fruit drop off, then it is mostly due to fertilizer misuse. Commonly, overuse of fertilizers is the problem, so it is important to use fertilizer only at the recommended dosage. This problem is more common with the use of chemical fertilizers like urea, DAP or NPK granules, and not a problem with organic fertilizers. And moreover, people tend to use too much fertilizer on their plants to make them grow faster, especially the newbie gardeners. But what it actually does is, it creates a toxic effect on the plants which burns the leaves and turns them yellow. On number 5, high soil pH, that is too alkaline soil. This can be one of the reasons for leaves turning yellow. This is little difficult to diagnose unless you have a soil pH testing gadget. This simple pH testing gadget will give you a rough idea about the soil pH, whether it is acidic or alkaline soil. Most plants need a slightly acidic pH of around 6.5 for best absorption of nutrients. All related videos links in the description below. Well, on number 4, temperature. Leaves start turning yellow when it is either too hot or too cold. In terms of the cold temperatures, like for example the adenium plants, the leaves start yellowing in winter and eventually fall off, and the plant goes into the dormant state in winter. This is called winter dormancy, and this applies to many other plants as well. Then on number 3, sunlight. Reduced exposure to sunlight is another common reason for plant leaves to turn yellow because not enough light is reaching the plant for photosynthesis. Similarly, too much exposure to hot direct sun is another common reason for the tips and edges of the leaves to turn dry and brown. This can be corrected easily by knowing your plant by its name, or at least whether it is a sun-loving plant or a shade-loving plant. Knowing a plant by its name is really important to learn about its care tips, especially its light requirement, and then you provide optimum exposure to the sunlight. A simple free app to know a plant ID is Google Lens app, provided by Google. You can watch a detailed episode on this topic from a link in the description below. Well, on number 2, improper watering. We'll discuss this in detail. Please watch this carefully to understand the concepts. Improper watering can present as either leaf yellowing or leaf drying or leaf burning at tips and edges. The most common reason that the plant leaves turn yellow is because of moisture stress, which can be either overwatering or underwatering. Similarly, the most common cause for brown leaf tips or brown edges on leaves is the plant not getting enough water. I repeat, the plant not getting enough water, which can be due to several reasons apart from you not watering the plant adequately. First of all, check whether you are adequately watering the plant by checking the soil surface for moisture by dipping 1 or 2 inches of your finger. If you are forgetting to water the plant, rectify this problem immediately, especially for water-loving plants. But this does not mean that you have to overwater them, which is actually more dangerous than underwatering and can result in root rot. Then secondly, the roots may be constricted and unable to pick up or absorb the water adequately, especially in container gardening. Also, too much clay-rich soil is another cause for constricting the roots tightly. So, increasing the watering to resolve this issue is not the solution, because there is a possibility of root rot with overwatering. Hence, the best solution to this is to repot the plant in a larger container and in a loose, well-draining soil. A simple hack to get rid of clayey soil while repotting your plant is to soak the clay-rich root ball for few minutes in a bucket of water to dissolve this soil and then repot this in a well-draining soil. Then thirdly, the soil does not hold the water and drains out too quickly. This is another reason. If your soil is too much sandy or over-draining soil with lots of sand, the water may simply be draining away too fast, and this may be causing water deficiency and brown edges on the leaves. Improve the soil with other stuff like organic material and by mixing some garden soil and also other stuff like coco peat, vermiculite, perlite, etc., which will hold on to the water better. An ideal well-draining soil is the one which drains out neither too quickly nor too slowly. A simple and a rough test to check whether your soil is perfectly well-draining is when you thoroughly water your plant, it should drain out of the drainage hole in about 1 to 2 minutes, neither too quicker nor too late. Fourthly, the roots may be damaged, like while digging or even repotting or too much root pruning of a root-bound plant. This can cause root damage and reduce the water uptake. In this case, correct the problem which is causing the root damage and then do some good pruning on the plant branches to reduce its watering requirement so that the root system recovers from this stress. Then the fifth reason for the sides of a leaf to turn brown is high salt content of the soil, either using hard water, that is salty water, to water the plants or overuse of fertilizers. To overcome this problem, start watering with soft water, and also if you have over-fertilized, flush the pot with large amounts of soft water, keeping it in sunlight and properly opening the drainage holes of the container so that the salty water or the fertilizer flushes out easily out of the pot. One simple, common sense hint here for watering is Generally, indoor plants are more prone to overwatering and outdoor plants are more prone to underwatering. Then on number 1 is leaf chlorosis due to nutritional deficiency, either due to poor quality potting soil or absorption issues due to improper soil pH. Lack of uptake of major and minor nutrients in the plant like nitrogen and also certain mineral deficiencies like iron, manganese, zinc and others can cause unique leaf yellowing patterns. Summer season has started in most tropical countries and the temperatures are gradually soaring. For those who are beginners in gardening or planning to start gardening, trust me, it's a great hobby, fun and really satisfying. And also it's not that difficult. It's just gaining some basic knowledge and applying some common sense. Well, it's not just humans who suffer from the heat of summer. Plants too need proper hydration and care. You cannot switch off the sunlight. It's not in your hands. In fact, with some precautions and following some simple tips here, this season can be really good for your plants. So, here are some quick and useful tips one by one to keep your plants healthy and blooming this summer. On number 1, watering. In summer, you need to water your plants more than you normally do. Keep it a rule to keep the soil moist at all times of the day. If your potting soil is sandy and very well draining out, you must water at least once a day. During summer, water the plants during early morning or just after sunset. That is to avoid evaporation of water quickly. Most outdoor plants kept in sun dry out at the end of the day. Hence, daily watering is the general rule except for succulents. You can water your succulents and cacti on alternate days or at least twice weekly in summer season. On number 2, humidity. You can cover the top layer of the soil by mulching with material containing some wooden pieces, twigs, dead plant leaves, newspaper or even mulching sheets if you have. Mulching will help retain the moisture of the soil. For beginners, mulching means applying some material on the top surface of the soil to prevent water evaporation and many other benefits. You can watch related detailed videos from links in description. Another simple way to increase humidity is to make a humidity tray by using small pebbles installed in a large tray surrounding the plant and pour some water in the tray. This really helps to maintain humidity levels around the plant. On number 3, clustering of plants. You can keep potted plants in clusters close to each other. This way they'll face less sun maybe from one side only, or smaller plants may get some shade from a larger plant. And this will also increase humidity levels. On number 4, pruning. Pruning or trimming of your plants should be done to remove unnecessary or bad foliage and branches. This will avoid excess loss of water through transpiration and also conserve plants' energy for a healthier new growth. On number 5, fertilizing. The summer season is the growth period of most plants, starting from the spring season, and the plant soil should be provided with more fertilizer in summer to sustain this high growth rate and extra energy requirement after the dormant winter season. Apply manures like decomposed cow dung, vermicompost, bone meals, and oil cakes like mustard and neem cakes or any type of fertilizers recommended for a plant at least once in 2 weeks. You can also make a cocktail fertilizer mixture for ease of application and saving time. You can watch a detailed episode on this cocktail mixture from a link in the description. Well, on number 6, de-weeding. All kinds of weeds should be rooted out of the plant soil so that the nutrients and water meant for your plants are not used up by the weeds. Then on number 7, sunlight. The morning sun is best for potted fruits, flowers and vegetables. Try relocating your plants to receive maximum morning sunlight and avoid the strong noon sun. You can consider installing shade nets or green nets with at least 50% filtering factor. This even protects the plant from the harmful ultraviolet radiation. Detailed video on this is linked in description below. On number 8, misting the plants. To keep it humid and fresh, misting frequently with water can really help the plants. This will also make the leaves clean and shine. You can also wipe the plants with a soft cloth to promote photosynthesis if you have limited number of plants. On number 9, pest control. This is really important. You cannot afford to lose this growing season by allowing pests to hamper the growth of your plants. Do rigorous pest control organically wherever applicable by spraying neem oil once in a week or at least once in 15 days. On number 10, few quick additional tips like do not place your plants near AC units. This can damage your plants. Then if you can arrange, keep a swinging fan running for good air circulation. In summer, many well-maintained nurseries have lots of fans constantly running in daytime with even automated fine misting units. Then installing drip irrigation system is also a very useful idea to save a lot of your time. It's not really difficult and also not at all expensive and can be easily installed by yourself. Rainy season is the best time for beautiful greenery in your garden. Whether your backyard, balcony or even terrace garden, the plants are benefited not only by the rains but also the fresh and cool breeze with healthy air circulation around your plants and also the optimum humidity in the air which acts as a boon for your plants. When it comes to home gardening, especially container gardening, we'll quickly look into 10 simple tips to follow during rainy season. On number 1, the drainage system. This is the most important task to perform in rainy season. Inspect every container for this. You should see the water flowing out of the drainage holes after a minute of thorough watering. Insert a sharp pointed tool like a screwdriver into the drainage hole and make sure it's open. This is very important in rainy season because stagnant water can result in root rot and death of your plant. And this is also the high time for fungus attacks. This stagnation can increase the breeding of mosquitoes and increase diseases like dengue fever and other mosquito-borne diseases. Another important tip here is to avoid using trays under your pots, at least during rainy season. On number 2, watering. Do not water the plants during the monsoon season unless the soil has turned dry or the leaves have started wilting. Remember this line. Overwatering is the most common plant killer and not underwatering. On number 3, soil. A well-draining soil is indispensable for your plants, especially in rainy season. So what is a well-draining soil? A well-drained soil is a soil where water drains out at a medium rate, neither too quickly nor too slowly. We all know that if the soil is too wet, plant roots fail to get the oxygen they need and they tend to rot and the plant dies. A perfectly well-draining soil can be assessed by a simple test. When you thoroughly water your plant, it should drain out from the drainage hole in about 1 to 2 minutes, neither quicker nor too late. You can check out a detailed video on this topic from a link in the description and also the things you can mix into the soil to achieve this goal. On number 4, earthworms, the gardener's best friends and also called as robots of garden. This is the time when they are found maximum, and if you find them concentrated in one container, you can pick them up and spread them around the garden to allow best fertilization of soil at multiple places. On number 5, protect young and tender plants, that is your seedlings and saplings, from rain. Tender, young plants, that is seedlings and saplings which are too fragile, should be sheltered adequately to protect them from rains. On number 6, frogs and toads. These animals should be allowed in the garden during the monsoon. These are insect eaters and help the garden to be free from these insects. That is one method of biological pest control. On number 7, pruning and deadheading is important just before monsoon for most plants. This helps the fresh shoots to grow and increases branching and growth. On number 8, fertilizers. It is always better to use natural fertilizers than chemicals for plants in monsoon. And also the fertilizer requirement increases during this season. Firstly, because this is a growth season for most plants. Then secondly, because of rain, there is frequent washout of applied fertilizers. Slow release fertilizers like cow dung manure have been proven to be the best manure for plants. You can also use home compost or even vermicompost. You can also use foliar feeding or foliar spray to feed your plants quickly for any deficiencies. During the monsoon season, the stomata or the pores in the plants open up and spraying the fertilizer helps the plant to absorb them immediately. On number 9, for ground gardening, preparing raised beds is so beneficial. Water will never stagnate. For container gardening and ground gardening, Make sure you do not have pits around your plants and try to fill it with mulch or try to level it or make it slopey or flat. The main idea is to prevent water stagnation. Then finally on number 10, pesticides. Spraying pesticides should be done during the monsoon immediately after fresh shoots start appearing after the pruning process. Most pests and insects prefer to suck fresh leaves, and application of pesticides will help them in controlling these pests. This is a honeymoon period for many insects, especially the slugs and snails, which can significantly eat away your garden. Best natural pesticide mix can be prepared by mixing 5 ml of neem oil in 1 liter of water plus 1 teaspoon of baking soda and then 10 drops of any liquid soap. Mix well and spray once every 10 to 15 days as a preventive measure, or weekly once if your plants are already affected by pests. This will control all types of pests in your garden, including the fungus spot diseases like the black spot rose disease and stuff like that. Most summer plants either begin to die or prepare for a type of hibernation or dormancy during winter season. For beginners, hibernation or dormancy means a period of inactivity where all the processes like growth are slowed down, something like a suspended animation. So, during this period, you must help your plants and care for them if you want to keep them alive. Whether outdoor plants or indoor plants, all need winter care for survival. But outdoor plants are more prone to winter attacks than indoor plants. But it all depends on how vulnerable the plants are, how cold the weather is, and the length of the winter season, and also the location or the zone you live in. The secret to helping plants survive winter is adjusting some care routines to suit your plants' seasonal growing conditions. Let's review these 10 gardening tips or winter plant care tips one by one. On number 10, plant selection. Always choose the plants that are suited to your climate and zone. This is simplest and lowest effort choice. Learn which growing zone you live in and keep the plants that will survive in your zone. Well, on number 9, conserve plants' energy in winter. Remove any dead leaves, birds, flowers and even branches to conserve your plant's energy during the state of dormancy. As a general rule, for most plants, fertilizers are not used during winter. Even if used, the quantity should be very minimal. The only exemption to this rule are the winter flowers and winter vegetables and few other plants. For other plants, you can resume fertilizers at the start of the spring season. On number 8, bring potted plants indoors. If you have any potted plants or hanging baskets outdoors, bring them inside your home. This will increase the temperature by at least 5 degrees. For sun-loving plants, place them back in sun during daytime. I know it's a tough task, but you need to take the pain for the sake of your plants. On number 7, covering your plants. This is a very important step if you do not want to bring your plants indoors. You can use various things to cover your plants depending on the size of your plants and pots, like using a polythene covers or Ziploc bags to cover smaller plants. Being transparent, you can even leave them covered even during daytime. Make sure you make some small holes in the bag for air circulation and also leave some space of about 1 or 2 inches at the bottom side. Then you can also use any size plastic shopping bag and make similar holes for air circulation. Use just anything to protect your plants, even a blanket or piece of cloth to cover the plants by placing few sticks or supports for tenting. For support, you can also use a garden trellis or make your own DIY trellis using some long sticks. Take it off during the daytime for sunlight exposure. This method works best to protect plants from frost. Another hack here is use empty pots to protect your seedlings or even small plants. Just place them upside down and cover the seedlings or young plants in night time. And of course, remove the cover in the morning to expose them to sunlight. On number 6, mulching. For beginners, mulching is a process of applying some material to the top layer of the garden soil. Apply a layer of mulch like shredded leaves, twigs, straw and things like that, which act as insulators, holding in heat and moisture in the soil. It is used to protect the root systems of your plant from cold temperatures and also prevents weed growth. On number 5, you can build your own DIY polyhouses or greenhouses using some polythene sheets and sticks and keep your plants inside them. Also, there are many ready-to-use polyhouse bags and tents available online. On number 4, supply a heat source. In extremely cold conditions, you can provide your plants with a heat source like a room heater or a high wattage light bulb, or even a plant grow light like LED grow lights. These are not just for warmth, but also they help your plants prepare their own food, that is photosynthesis. Then on number 3, pruning. Pruning or trimming your plants, especially if your plants are under pest attack or they are diseased. Pruning can certainly save your plant, and as discussed earlier, this will also conserve the plant's energy. You can watch a detailed episode on how to prune, when to prune, and the types of pruning from a link in the description below. Then on number 2, spray the plants. Especially indoor plants sprayed with a light mist at once a day are benefited. Spray and clean the leaves of any dust and help them perform photosynthesis efficiently using the minimum amount of light available. Then on number 1, watering. For indoor plants, considerably reduce the frequency of watering to prevent rot. And also plants grow at a slower rate in winter and obviously require very less moisture. If you're not sure, use the finger dip method. That is, dip your finger into the soil to about an inch and check for moisture. Water it only if it's completely dry. Plants can sense changes in the seasons. For example, in the fall, when the days start to get shorter, the trees sense that there is less sunlight. The plant is stimulated and it sends messages telling the leaves to change colors and fall off, and the plant then goes into dormancy. This is an example of photoperiodism, the reaction of plants to the length of the day or night. Well, spring is the most active and most important season for gardening. Plants wake up from their sleeping period, that is the dormancy period or the inactive period of winter. Applying these 5 steps and tips just before they start their active period really makes a lot of difference and helps them grow and yield better in the coming days. On number 5, clean up your garden. This should be your first task, especially if you do not do this regularly. You may see a lot of debris like fallen leaves, twigs, dirt and other garbage. This should be done first because neat and clean garden makes a perfect scene. On number 4, weed removal. Early spring weeds can be a nuisance. They can be a real problem and steal your plant's nutrients from the soil and can result in stunted growth of your plant. Head out in the garden and start pulling those weeds. Make sure you pluck them at the root level. This is really important to stop them from growing back again. Use different types of weed removal garden tools depending on the size of your garden. On number 3, fertilizers and soil preparation. Winter season can make your soil hard and compact. You need not repot your plants completely into a fresh new potting mix. Just till the top 1 or 2 inches of the soil carefully without damaging your plant roots. Then you can apply the fertilizer over this or remove this soil if it's too compact, or if it's not too much compacted, then remove this soil and mix it with compost like decomposed cow dung powder or vermicompost, like 1 or 2 handfuls of it depending on the size of your container or the size of your plant. Mix it thoroughly with this topsoil and then add it back to the plant. Well, this is a one-time task to improvise the topsoil. Then regarding fertilizing your plants, make sure you add at least 1 handful of compost like decomposed cow dung or horse dung or even vermicompost per plant at least once every 15 days. Spring season is the most important time the growth of your plant picks up, and fertilizing your plant is really important at this stage. Then on number 2, pruning, that is trimming or cutting your plant branches. For most summer plants, this is the best time to prune them. Even hard pruning your older plants can be done at this time. Pruning encourages the plant to grow well and makes them bushy as the plant grows. You can watch a detailed episode on how to prune, types of pruning with important concepts of pruning from a link in description below. Well, on number 1, start planting new seeds or plants. Depending on the zone you live in, you can start sowing your seeds like summer vegetables or flowering plants for the summer in this spring season.
Please follow this playlist titled Complete Gardening Course and watch all parts like Part 1, Part 2, Part 3 and so on.
Please like, share and comment below with your feedback and queries. Happy gardening!